All right, here we are, Wednesday, January 25th, 2023. Hope everyone's having a great week, training and otherwise. Um, Today, I'm going to talk about some injury workaround, rehab type of strategy stuff, as well as answering your questions. So, I've been doing all these 30-minute consults with all of our annual subscribers. Thank you to all those fine folks. And just thinking about what the kind of common things are on there, and I've also noticed more of the annual subscribers seem to be Masters 1, Masters 2, sometimes even Masters 3 age group. So that's probably why this may be a bit more common theme. And a lot of them were not competing in powerlifting, just training to train. So that has some consideration as well. But as always, I'll try and be descriptive rather than prescriptive here so you can understand kind of the principle behind my thinking in these strategies. So first off, if you are dealing with an injury that is restricting your training in some way, the most important thing you can do is tell the app that. Tell the app at the bottom of the questionnaire each day that you're rehabbing an injury, so then it can give you some rehab for that. But as you're at, that's more of a late stage rehab. What's in there? Not like you had this acute injury, not like I tore my pec and then I tore my pec on Monday, and then on Wednesday, I told the app I'm rehabbing bench press. You need to get cleared by a doctor in that situation. But so outside of acute injuries, more like, all right, my shoulder's bugging me when I bench, but I've got a meet in 6 weeks that I still want to do. How can I make an adjustment around that? So the first and most significant thing when dealing with injury prevention, reduction, whatever, that's kind of a semantics argument, is going to be managing volume. And the app does that. That is exactly what pretty much the entire premise of it is built around, is individualizing your volume and managing it to how you're responding. So if you're like, man, this hurts, but I keep telling the app, that I'm a 4 or a 5, that I feel great, that I want to increase. Well, that's your own damn fault. As I've said before, the app's not a mind reader. It only knows what you tell it. So if you tell it you feel good, or you tell it you feel great, and you don't, it has no way to adjust properly for you. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're like, ouch, ouch, this hurts, but not so much that you need to take the day off of training, or you got a meet coming up and you still want to create a workaround to get through to it. Yes, and part of that, tell the app that you're very sore in that body part so it can reduce your volume for that day. It may also be appropriate for you to swap exercises just for the day, or maybe you have to do this, for a week or two in a row. But we want to find exercises that don't recreate symptoms. So if it hurts your knee right now to do a competition squat, well, what are adjustments we could make to that in the short term to allow you to still get some good squatting stimulus, but not re-aggravate that or exacerbate that problem. So like a box squat could be a good option for you there. Maybe it's an above parallel box squat that you have to do instead of a comp squat, but above parallel box squat is better than no squatting. It's both better in that it's going to help you retain the strength that you have, and it's also actually going to help you probably heal faster through some improved blood flow there. So finding a regression, a modification of exercise or technique of an exercise is really what we need to be looking for in the short term as an injury workaround. So like the box squat example could be that. It could be changing your stance, narrower, wider, sitting back more, high bar instead of low bar. Yeah, high bar instead of low bar, front squat instead of high bar, safety squat bar as an option, elevating your heels, turning your toes out more, turning your toes straighter, going down slower, pausing, using less weight. Is the injury sensitive to volume? Is it sensitive to position? Is it sensitive to intensity? If you're warming up, let's say you're supposed to squat 405 for 5 for the day, and as you're warming up, everything up to 315 feels fine, and then you get to like 350 as you're warming up, and that starts to recreate symptoms. Well, then just do 315. Do a little bit of extra volume at 315 because you're more sensitive to the intensity. So that's something to consider there. A lot of small modifications that can be made. Bench grip, narrower, wider, bench to a board or blocks or pins, deadlift with the bar elevated on blocks. Do sumo instead of conventional for the day. Do trap bar deadlift. Do just RDLs. Maybe you have to go and only do back raises for that day. But that's also part of the reason why the swapping exercise, it asks just for today or for the whole block. It's totally fine. And I know this is a tough pill to swallow, but it's better to make a modification for the day than to push through with something that's exacerbating your issue. Maybe you get hurt worse, or it's just not allowing you to recover. Because and both of those options are probably better than not doing anything for the day. There's always something useful to be done. A great man, Jack Clark, head coach of the University of California rugby team. You may have heard me talk about him before or heard him on a podcast with me or anything like that. They've won 28 of the last 36 national championships, something like that. Just a great team culture builder. And he talks about how they define mental toughness for the University of California Golden Bear rugby team as doing the next most productive thing. So when something goes wrong, they don't think, they don't just throw up their hands and give up about it. They think, well, that didn't work. So what else can I do to be productive? And they go down the road with that. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't, all right, that didn't work. What's the next most productive thing I can try and do? And they keep pivoting and pivoting and pivoting. And that's kind of the strategy towards the injury workaround rehab type of stuff too. I can't do the exercise that I want to do, but what can give me a similar effect without causing the problem, without recreating the symptoms? So we make that modification, make that modification, make that modification. And even if it's front foot elevated split squat for the day instead of competition squat, is it perfect? No. Is it better than nothing? Definitely. So keep that in mind as you maybe deal with some pain here and there. The other part of that I'd encourage you towards is checking out all the great content we have on the Juggernaut Training Systems YouTube channel that deals with this kind of stuff. So let me throw you some links there. I was telling Marissa the other day what a hard time I have typing and speaking simultaneously. So I'm going to try and do it anyways. Let's see, what playlists do we want for this? We'll put this one in. Exercises that keep my back feeling good. I just published this last week. Let's see some other good ones here. With the man Quentin Lee, physio strength. That'll be a good one. Start talking again in a second. Yeah, and check out our guy Physio Strength NYC on Instagram, Dr. Quentin Lee, and he'll be able to give you a bit better insights than I can. But keep that in mind. The words of the great Jack Clark: mental toughness is doing the next most productive thing. So just pivot, 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 and something's always better than nothing. So getting to your questions, Brandon Rogers asks, how important is RIR? I can gauge that on accessories like lat pull down or arms. I'm guessing that you meant you can't gauge it on accessories like lat pull down or arms. Is the difference between hitting if it says 4 RIR and you do a 5 or a 3, not a huge deal. If it says you do 4 RIR and you're like, I can't gauge this, I'm just going to go to failure every time, that's not going to be great. But as long as you're trying to do it, and you might be plus or minus 1 or 2 reps here and there, but you'll get better at it as you go. But if you're using power building, RIR is going to be significant, as it's a big part of that program. Remember, keep in mind with RIR, the way that it's used in power building, most of the way it's used all throughout the app, it's open-ended. It's going to give you a weight suggestion and a reps in reserve target, and you're going to keep repping out until you feel like you've hit that target. There's not a set number of reps for you to do with it. It says 3 reps in reserve. The first set, that might be you might do 15 reps to hit 3 reps in reserve. The next set you might hit 12. The next set you might hit 9. That's fine. That's how it should be. So just keep practicing at it. It's not going to be perfect right away, but you'll get closer. Mike Rodriguez, any chance we can do a seminar during Powerlifting American Nationals in Austin? Chance, yes. Likelihood, probably not. Honestly, I've done probably about 250 seminars. I've done about 250 seminars in my time doing this, starting back, I think I did my first seminar late 2010 and the last one's in 2019. And everything I've talked about in a seminar, it's on our YouTube for free already. Like, getting some hands-on technique coaching has some utility, but if you watch the YouTube channel a lot, you watch pillars and all that stuff, you'd get to the seminar and be like, this guy's just saying the exact same thing he does on YouTube. So, yeah. So Brandon asking about just feel like the squat volume is too much. Tell the app that. Tell it that you're sore, that your quads are sore, that your hamstrings are sore, that your low back is sore at the pre-training questionnaire. Tell it that the session was hard at the end of training session. Tell it at the end of the week that the squat workouts are too hard. Yeah, you can adjust your max. If traditionally your competition numbers are much higher than your gym numbers, then use the gym max in there would be probably appropriate. Like my best training squat was 915. I squatted 970 in a meet. If I would have based numbers off of 970, percentages strictly off of 970, it would have been very tough. So you can go ahead and reduce those a little bit, but make sure you're using the check-ins appropriately. All right, Sean, arthritis in both knees. Yeah. Especially if you're not getting ready for powerlifting competition, you do not need to competition squat, competition bench, competition deadlift. If you're not doing competitions, that's not even a real exercise to you anymore. So it could be totally appropriate if you're just training to feel better, look better, perform better, that your competition squat is a box squat or a safety squat bar squat, or a heels elevated safety squat bar, heels elevated front squat, whatever you need that you feel like you can perform effectively, that doesn't, bug your arthritis, all that kind of stuff, and progress that. And you're going to feel a lot better and do a lot better than forcing yourself into these, 3 very specific exercises if you're not competing. So Rod asking, kind of related to injury workarounds, just came down with COVID during the first week of your peaking block, 3 weeks out from your meet. Well, as far as it ending the week, the wrong week, report a bug on that for me. It's tough to say because COVID, hits everyone differently. I know some people barely notice and some people are pretty down for the count. If you are feeling like really rough from it, there's always another powerlifting meet to do. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're 3 weeks out, I'm not even quite sure what to tell you in terms of, are you able to start back training in a week, in 2 weeks? Is it going to be a week out? If you haven't lifted, if you have to take 2 weeks off of lifting and then you can't train again until you're a week out from the meet, you should just do a different meet. Andre, is it better to have everyday different squat variations? It's going to recommend the amount of variation that I think is appropriate in there. If you get into too much variation, you're going to have problems with directed adaptation. If you get not enough variation, you could run into problems of adaptive resistance. It's very unlikely that if you just follow the app exactly as it's written, if you just follow the app directly as it's written, I don't think that you'll run into adaptive resistance issues because, I planned for that. So yeah, having 2 variations in a week or 3 variations in a week is fine, but don't be doing variation for variation's sake. Another video that'll touch on that is, so I put the directed adaptation versus adaptive resistance in there. And then I have this other one utilizing variation for fatigue management. We'll put that there too. Mike, is it best to select an exercise for the duration or that day only for best results? So with primary exercises, squat, bench, deadlift variations, I would suggest that you keep the same the main exercises in for a minimum of 1 block, probably more like 2 or 3. Yeah, probably more like 2 or 3. For accessory exercises, you'd be fine. You'd be fine switching those every block, but don't switch them every session or every week. And here's a video on why. Yeah, Brandon, I don't have the Swiss bar in there. One, I'm trying not to put that many specialty bars in there because most people don't have them, and they don't. They aren't that useful. Um, I mean, they're more injury workaround tools than anything. The safety squat bar is really the only one that I'm like, oh, this has a true function for someone who is capable of doing all available exercises. So in that swapping exercise video I just embedded in there, that is from a playlist of which all the videos in this playlist are sent to you at some point when you sign up in the span of your first like 3 weeks using the app. You get a bunch of emails, and these videos are in those emails, but I'll link them here as well. Where it says onboarding series as a whole playlist. If you watch that onboarding series playlist, you are going to do a lot better using the app. The other place that will be very, very helpful to you is the FAQ, which you can find in the menu of the app, as well as the link that I just posted in the comments. But yeah, the people who are the most successful using the app, they're the people who watch those onboarding videos, who check out the FAQ, who watch the YouTube, who are active in the group. And if you're watching this, you're going to be better off than most because you're here asking questions and finding answers. But if I have this little article, 5 tips to get the most out of the JuggernautAI app. Number one, and most of these things are things I've already touched on in today's Q&A. Number one, honesty is the best policy. App can't read your mind, so you got to tell it how it's feeling, how you're feeling. You got to tell it what's going on. If you don't, or you are inaccurate, Torin, thank you. Or if you're not forthright in how you feel, you tell it how you want to feel, not how you actually feel, it can't adjust properly for you. Number two, the more you give, the more you get. Pre-session questionnaire, performance ratings, end-of-session check-ins, end-of-week check-ins, end-of-block check-ins, mindset check-ins, all that stuff. The more you engage with the app, the more check-ins that you use and give that forthright feedback, the better it's going to adjust, the more you're going to get out of it. A little less is better than a little too much. If you're wondering, oh, was that an 8 or an 8.5? Could I have done 1 or 2 more reps? Tell it that was an 8.5. Do I feel like a 4 or a 3 today? Tell it you feel like a 3. It's always easier to start lower and add more as you go than to do too much and have to pull back. Number 4, the answer you're looking for is at your fingertips. Whether, like I said, FAQ, onboarding videos, these Q&As, the Facebook group, customer service chat, just watching the YouTube videos, all that stuff. Check it all out. The more you take advantage of it, the better off you're going to do. And then 5, to trust the process. If you're in hypertrophy, you're in your end of your second hypertrophy block, and you're like, I couldn't squat my PR today, my max single. Of course you couldn't. You're carrying a ton of fatigue from doing a bunch of reps. But the better job you do with that now, then as we decay that fatigue and we pull back the volume and we increase the specificity, your peak is going to get higher and higher and higher the time that it actually matters. There's not surprise meets that come, contrary to popular belief. You don't have to always be ready. In fact, if you were always peaked, you'd never be peaked. Kane, finishing your peaking block this week and feeling really good. Could I jump straight into a bridge block, or should I do a sort of deload week 2 to 3 days, then start? Not big recreational activities outside of lifting. So right after your mock meet, even if you're like, I am so pumped to start training hard again, I would suggest taking just a little bit of time after and probably the full week before starting the bridge block. So there is a link, a video about getting the most out of your off-season training, which I think I talk about training post-meet as well. But yeah, taking a week to do not squat, bench, and deadlift would be a good decision. If you have access to machines, to do some of that, to do some, something that looks like strongman training or CrossFit or whatever, just other physical activity will be very beneficial to you. And then after that week, yeah, hop into the bridge block, and that can be really, that'll be a good strategy for you. And then you go from there. Here's another one. Training after a meet, Instagram post I made about that, so you can check that out. And we actually have planned a bunch of prompts about this kind of stuff that'll be getting added to the app to help you make smoother transitions from meet to post-meet to bridge to next training cycle. So good deal. All right. Thank you, everybody, for the questions today. Let me scroll through, make sure I didn't miss anyone. Good over here, good over there. Great. All right. Thank you, everybody. If you are wondering what to do with your training, the spring garage gym competition is not too far away. It's in May. That could be a fun option for you. It goes from May 13th to May 21st. You could submit your lifts at any time during that. So you could set that up as your meet date in the app and point towards that and win some cool stuff. And it's a good time. So I would suggest checking that out. All right. Have a great day.